A line of dry sandstone rises beside an asphalt road in the high country of eastern New South Wales. Eucalyptus bark hangs in strips from the trunks, cicadas buzz in the midday heat, and sheep graze across rolling, cleared paddocks that stretch toward the western horizon. Nothing about this gentle pastoral ridge suggests that it holds a fracture capable of rearranging the continent. What is remarkable about the Great Dividing Range is not that its peaks are modest, but that for more than a century of official cartography, the fundamental mechanics of its survival remained entirely misunderstood. Early surveyors treated it as a simple mountain spine, yet instrument surveys now reveal an ongoing tectonic struggle where river catchments are actively being stolen, ancient faults are shifting under intraplate pressure, and the continent is quietly eroding in directions that defy standard textbook models. Why does an ancient landmass with no active plate boundary continue to lift, buckle, and reshape its own drainage networks? Across the continent, 50 specific anomalies reveal how dynamic and unstable this seemingly dormant landscape truly is. For decades, geologists assumed the Australian Cordillera was merely a passive remnant of ancient Paleozoic collisions, slowly wearing down to sea level. Yet precise radiometric dating, satellite radar, and airborne geophysical imaging have exposed the reality of an evolving landmass. Item 50. The ultra-pure silica deposits of Cape Flattery in far north Queensland sit directly on the coastal fringe, holding quartz sand graded at more than 99.9% purity. Airborne radiometric surveys and sonic core drilling by the Geological Survey of Queensland revealed that sustained trade winds continually sorted the dunes over 500,000 years, stripping out heavy minerals. Extracting over 2 million tons annually, operations load bulk carriers anchored in the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park, where any disruption from tropical cyclones directly pressures global semiconductor glass and solar panel supply chains. Item 49. The Great Escarpment of Eastern Australia is actively migrating inland rather than eroding down. Apatite fission track analysis and uranium-thorium-helium dating conducted by the University of Melbourne and Geoscience Australia proved that the 2,000-kilometre scarp retreats westward at 1 to 2 kilometres every million years. Aggressive coastal streams continually breach highland ridges and capture slower inland rivers, forcing transport agencies to spend millions annually managing landslides and retaining wall failures along the Dorrigo and Oxley highways. Item 48. The Finke River, known to Arrernte people as Larapinta, cuts straight through the folded quartzite ridges of the McDonnell Ranges in the Northern Territory. Beryllium-10 and aluminium-26 cosmogenic dating confirmed that the river incised its gorge at the exact rate the Central Australian crust buckled under intraplate stress. While regional accounts claim it as the oldest river on Earth, the channel represents a superimposed drainage pattern whose ephemeral floods replenish critical alluvial aquifers and deep bedrock refugia across the arid interior. Item 47. Beneath the coastal sands of K'gari and the Cooloola sandmass in Queensland, ground-penetrating radar and geochemical auguring identified giant podzol horizons over 20 meters thick. Decaying coastal heath leached acidic humic compounds that stripped all iron and clay from the silica grains, depositing impermeable subterranean pans of coffee rock. These perched organic floors hold massive freshwater aquifer systems suspended high above sea level, supporting fragile dune ecosystems like Lake Mackenzie. Item 46. During the extreme rainfall of March 2021 across the mid-north coast of New South Wales, over 600 millimeters of rain in 4 days triggered more than 400 slope failures. Spaceborne synthetic aperture radar detected millimeter-scale deformation before residual soils on steep Paleozoic metasediments liquefied. Core drilling proved that water pressurized ancient clay gouge zones along the saprolite bedrock contact, prompting local councils to mandate deep geotechnical testing for hillside developments. Item 45. In the Gawler Craton of South Australia, crystalline basement rocks date back more than 2.5 billion years. Sensitive high-resolution ion microprobe zircon dating at the Australian National University pinned the crystalline basement beneath Olympic Dam to 1,590 million years old. Here, BHP extracts copper, uranium, gold, and silver from a massive breccia complex buried beneath hundreds of meters of barren Neoproterozoic sediment. Item 44. The Newer Volcanics province in Western Victoria covers 15,000 square kilometers across 400 eruption centers active into the Holocene. Optical stimulated luminescence and radiocarbon dating of baked sediments beneath ash layers at Mount Gambier and Mount Shank established eruptions as recent as 5,000 years ago, matching Boandic oral histories. While Geoscience Australia monitors the low-probability volcanic hazard, the resulting basaltic soils underpin Victoria's multi-billion-dollar grazing economy. Item 43. Mount Warning, known to Bundjalung people as Wollumben, is the central volcanic plug of the Tweed Shield volcano, active 23 million years ago. Airborne magnetic and gravity surveys mapped a frozen magma chamber 20 kilometers wide beneath the peak, ringed by 1,000-meter vertical rhyolite cliffs. While the weathered volcanic soils support productive agriculture, the steep caldera walls create severe orographic rain traps that regularly trigger catastrophic flash flooding through Murwillumbah. Item 42. In the Flinders Ranges of South Australia, the Elatina Formation preserves direct physical proof of the Neoproterozoic Marinoan glaciation 635 million years ago. Heavy quartzite dropstones melt out of ancient icebergs into marine siltstones. Oriented paleomagnetic cores confirm that these glaciated marine basins sat within 10 degrees of the equator, forming a key geological pillar for the region's World Heritage nomination alongside the Adnyamathanha traditional owners. Item 41. The 450-meter quartzite cliffs of Frenchman's Cap in western Tasmania were carved by Pleistocene Valley glaciers. Cosmogenic beryllium-10 surface exposure dating of polished bedrock confirmed that extensive ice caps scoured the Precambrian schist before retreating 15,000 years ago. Today, the Tasmania Parks and Wildlife Service maintains elevated boardwalks across fragile buttongrass plains to protect alpine peat soils from increasing hiking traffic. Item 40. The Darling Fault in Western Australia extends north to south for nearly 1,000 kilometres, separating the Archean-Yilgarn Craton from the Perth Basin. Deep seismic reflection profiling by Geoscience Australia showed the fault cutting 40 kilometres through the crust to the upper mantle, where the western crust dropped 15 kilometres during early Cretaceous rifting. Geological agencies actively monitor intraplate seismic tremors along the scarp adjacent to suburban Perth. Item 39. Across the Pilbara Craton, the Black Range dolerite dike swarm cuts in razor-straight lines for over 100 kilometres. High-precision uranium-lead mass spectrometry on badleyite crystals dated these mafic feeder intrusions to 2,772 million years ago, matching volcanic swarms in southern Africa and proving the existence of the supercontinent Valbara. Their extreme hardness requires heavy blasting to construct heavy-haul iron ore rail corridors. Item 38. On the Bogong High Plains in the Victorian Alps, alpine peatlands sit perched above 1,600 metres on impermeable Paleogene basalt caps. Isotopic tracing proved that these wetlands prevent deep infiltration, storing meltwater in thick sphagnum bogs that release a steady, cold baseflow into the Murray-Darling system throughout summer, supporting both the Kiewa hydroelectric scheme and downstream irrigation. Item 37. The Bunya Mountains in Queensland represent an isolated Miocene basalt shield formed 24 million years ago. Potassium-argon dating across eastern Australia revealed a progressive volcanic track matching the Indo-Australian plate's northward drift over a stationary mantle hotspot at 6.5 centimetres per year. The resulting high-altitude basalt refuge preserves ancient Bunya pine stands co-managed through traditional burning by Butchulla, Waka Waka and Jarraware custodians. Item 36. The Officer Basin in Central Australia preserves a 10-kilometre deep Neoproterozoic sedimentary succession initiated during the breakup of Rodinia 800 million years ago. Airborne gravity surveys detected a vast negative anomaly across the Gibson Desert, confirmed by deep exploration drilling. Because of extreme remoteness, resource development remains limited, requiring careful coordination with native title holders to safeguard culturally sensitive arid lands. Item 35. At Nilpena, in the Ediacara Hills of South Australia, sandstone beds preserve Earth's earliest complex soft-bodied animals from 550 million years ago. Structured light photogrammetry and microcomputed tomography revealed that storm sand sheets cast delicate organisms like Dickinsonia before decay set in. The South Australian government established a dedicated national park to protect these fragile bedding planes from fossil theft while supporting international paleontological research. Item 34. The Illawarra escarpment drops vertically from Hawkesbury sandstone cliffs to the New South Wales coast. Multi-year LiDAR monitoring and borehole inclinometers by Transport for New South Wales proved that soft Narrabeen group shales squeeze out laterally under the weight of the plateau, opening vertical cliff fractures. Managing this active instability requires continuous investment in high-tensile rockfall netting, deep drainage boreholes, and automated slope sensors above transport corridors. Item 33. On the New England tablelands, coastal rivers have captured vast catchments that once flowed west into the Murray-Darling Basin. Heavy mineral analysis and zircon provenance tracing from coastal riverbeds identified volcanic minerals derived from basalt caps far west of the current divide. This headward erosion carved massive chasms like Wollomombi Gorge, shifting the continental drainage divide inland by tens of kilometres over 50 million years. Item 32. Kapiti Valley in New South Wales is a 30-kilometre-wide sandstone amphitheatre north of the Blue Mountains. Seismic surveys and core drilling by the Department of Mineral Resources showed that regional groundwater softened weak Permian coal and claystone layers, undermining the massive sandstone cap and causing vertical joint blocks to collapse. The resulting open woodland valley forms a critical breeding stronghold for the critically endangered regent honeyeater. Item 31. Wollerman Falls in far north Queensland drops 268 metres in a single unbroken plunge on Stony Creek. Cosmogenic nuclide dating of the gorge walls showed that the plunge pool has retreated upstream through the Seaview Range granite batholith at 40 mm per thousand years, carving a 60-kilometre canyon through the wet tropics. Item 30. Carnarvon Gorge in central Queensland features vertical sandstone chasms rising 60 metres while measuring only a few metres wide. Hydrochemical sampling proved that groundwater circulating through the precipice sandstone is naturally charged with carbon dioxide from deep fault degassing, dissolving mineral cements along joint networks. The sheltered alcoves preserve extensive First Nations ochre stencils, managed by the Queensland Parks and Wildlife Service alongside Bidjara and Caringball custodians. Item 29. Determining Australia's highest waterfall depends on precise geomorphic classification. Differential GPS and airborne LiDAR confirmed that Wollerman Falls holds the highest single unbroken vertical plunge at 268 metres, while Wollomombi Falls in northern New South Wales drops 220 metres in its main fall and 392 metres across its combined multi-tier cascade. Item 28. The Otway Ranges in southwestern Victoria contain over 30 named waterfalls within the Colac-Otway Shire. Doppler weather radar shows that the seaward mountain face forces Southern Ocean westerly winds upward within 15 kilometres of the shore, dropping more than 2,000 millimetres of annual rain over fractured Cretaceous sandstone ledges at Erskine and Hopetoun Falls, requiring heavy geotechnical stabilisation along the Great Ocean Road. Item 27. The Nepean River flows directly through the elevated bedrock of the Lapstone monocline in New South Wales. Seismic reflection profiles showed that the monocline uplifted along a deep basement thrust during the Cenozoic, raising the sandstone plateau by 150 metres. Because the river's downcutting rate of 0.02 millimetres per year matched the tectonic uplift rate, the antecedent stream maintained its path, creating a narrow bedrock gorge that now backs up major floodwaters across Western Sydney. Item 26. In the Kimberley, Geikie Gorge, known to Bunuba people as Dangu, exposes a Devonian barrier reef formed 370 million years ago. Uranium series dating confirmed that modern river channels are re-excavating ancient paleovalleys carved into the limestone reef across successive geological eras, with Bunuba rangers actively monitoring sawfish populations in deep, permanent limestone pools. Item 25. On the granite summits of the Strzelecki Ranges and Flinders Island in Bass Strait, severe westerly gales frequently accelerate without a low-pressure system. Acoustic wind profilers and weather stations prove that stable atmospheric boundary layers compress mid-tropospheric winds through narrow mountain saddles, producing localized non-cyclonic downslope windstorms exceeding 140 km per hour. Item 24. A stark rain shadow divides the Victorian Great Dividing Range, where 30 kilometres separates Kinglake's 1,200mm annual rainfall from Seymour's 550mm. Satellite precipitation radiometry confirmed that descending air warms adiabatically on the northern slope, creating an abrupt ecological boundary between mountain ash rainforests and dry box ironbark grazing country. Item 23. The high dolerite plateaus of Kunanyu Mount Wellington and the Tasmanian Central Plateau function as sub-alpine sky islands above 1,200 metres. Palynological peat cores recorded continuous alpine plant communities extending through multiple glacial cycles, preserving ancient Gondwanan pencil pine and cushion plant lineages that vanished from the mainland millions of years ago. Item 22. Orographic lift along the wet tropical coast of Queensland operates as a massive hydrologic pump. At Mount Bellenden Kerr, weather radar recorded saturated trade winds striking a near-vertical 1,500-metre granite wall within 7 kilometres of the sea, dumping over 8,000 millimetres of rain annually at the summit station and powering the Barron Gorge and Korea hydroelectric plants. Item 21. In February 2022, the Wilsons River at Lismore crested at 14.4 metres, surpassing its 1954 record by more than 2 metres. Streamflow modelling revealed that the catchment absorbed over 1,000 millimetres of rain in 36 hours, generating a discharge of 4,000 cubic metres per second that overwhelmed all engineered levees and prompted widespread voluntary home buybacks across the floodplain. Item 20. The extreme flood dynamics in the Richmond and Tweed catchments are dictated by ancient volcanic topography. Two-dimensional hydrodynamic modelling proved that the steep caldera walls of the Tweed volcano funnel runoff simultaneously into confined valleys, causing floodwaters to rise at over 1 metre per hour at narrow drainage choke points. Item 19. In December 1951, torrential rain over the Strathbogie Ranges in Victoria triggered catastrophic debris flows. Stratigraphic trenching showed that chemical weathering of the granite produced a thick saprolite mantle that liquefied when poor water pressure destroyed its shear strength, establishing the foundation for modern catchment revegetation mandates on steep slopes. Item 18. Modern landslide risk management across the Dandenong and Strzelecki ranges relies on LiDAR terrain mapping. By digitally stripping away dense forest cover, geologists discovered hundreds of unrecorded ancient rotational slumps, leading local councils to enforce mandatory geotechnical hazard overlays before issuing residential building permits. Item 17. The Argyle diamond pipe in the East Kimberley erupted through the Proterozoic crust 1,180,000,000 years ago. Unlike most global pipes composed of kimberlite, Argyle was hosted in olivine lamproite, bringing up rare pink diamonds whose intense colour resulted from extreme plastic deformation of the carbon lattice during crustal collisions. Following mine closure in 2020, major engineering rehabilitation is stabilising the site for handover to traditional owners. Item 16. The 1851 gold discoveries across Ballarat, Bendigo and Ophir transformed Australia's economy while displacing First Nations custodians from traditional waterways. Aeromagnetic mapping and digitised historical mine plans identified over 20,000 kilometres of abandoned underground workings beneath Victorian cities, where authorities actively monitor and cap shafts prone to urban subsidence. Item 15. The endangered northern corroboree frog survives exclusively in high-altitude sphagnum bogs above 1,300 metres in Kosciuszko National Park. Microthermal sensors confirm that the 2 to 3 centimetre toxic amphibian depends on precise moisture and temperature buffering in sub-alpine peat moss, driving captive breeding and release programs by Zoos Victoria and Taronga Conservation Society. Item 14. In the Australian Alps, multispectral satellite imagery revealed that over 60% of snow gum canopies suffered severe loss between 2003 and 2023. Successive high-intensity bushfires combined with native wood borer beetle attacks on drought-stressed trees prevent lignituber regeneration, threatening the alpine watersheds that regulate mainland snowmelt. Item 13. The Seacliff Bridge on the northern Illawarra coast bypasses active rockfalls along Lawrence Hargrave Drive. Marine seismic reflection surveys and diamond core drilling located stable bulgo sandstone on the ocean floor, allowing engineers in 2005 to construct a 665-metre cantilevered bridge on 24 offshore piers over the surf. Item 12. The Great Ocean Road spans 243 kilometres along Victoria's coast, carved into Cretaceous cliffs by returned First World War soldiers. Terrestrial laser scanning measures continuous wave undercutting of the weak mudstone base, guiding the installation of seawalls, rock anchors, and long-term inland realignments. Item 11. Research in Victoria's Central Highlands following the 1939 Black Friday bushfires proved that mountain ash, the world's tallest flowering plant, produces no lignotubers and relies entirely on fire-released canopy seed crops landing on bare, sterilised ash beds. These old-growth catchments are now managed primarily for biodiversity and Melbourne's domestic water supply. Item 10. In Australian botanic gardens, mature sycamore and pine specimens grow from seeds carried into lunar orbit aboard Apollo 14 in 1971. Genetic sequencing confirmed that exposure to microgravity and cosmic radiation did not alter their reproductive viability or structural growth rates compared to terrestrial controls. Item 9. Lake Burragorang behind Warragamba Dam submerged the historic Burragorang Valley during the 1950s to supply Sydney's drinking water. Multi-beam sonar surveys mapped submerged township foundations, road alignments, and ancestral Gundungurra sites preserved beneath hundreds of billions of litres of protected catchment water. Item 8. Feral horse populations in Kosciuszko National Park cause widespread stream bank erosion and soil compaction across sub-alpine bogs. Long-term fenced vegetation exclosures demonstrated rapid recovery of native moss cover when horses were excluded, supporting ongoing scientific management plans to reduce feral numbers and protect the headwaters of the Murray and Murrumbidgee rivers. Item 7. Mount Kosciuszko at 2,228 metres, Mount Bogong at 1,986 metres, and Mount Bartlefrere at 1,622 metres anchor the highest points of their respective states along the Great Dividing Range. Geochemical testing confirms that each summit is sustained by resistant Paleozoic granite plutons that withstood the erosion that flattened the surrounding continent. Item 6. Molecular phylogenetics across the border ranges confirmed that the Gondwana rainforests preserve ancient primitive flowering plants and insect lineages with direct Cretaceous fossil relatives, providing the decisive evidence that halted commercial logging in the 1980s and secured international World Heritage status. Item 5. Clay mineral dating by CSIRO using potassium argon and rubidium strontium isotopes established that the Jenolan caves in New South Wales formed in Silurian limestone 340 million years ago, making it the oldest directly dated open cave system on Earth. Item 4. Lord Howe Island, a 7 million-year-old remnant shield volcano in the Tasman Sea, supports the world's southernmost coral reef and unique endemics like the flightless woodhen. Following the successful eradication of invasive rodents, endemic populations rebounded, demonstrating how strict visitor limits can preserve fragile oceanic ecosystems. Item 3. The Shoalhaven River carved a deep chasm through Bungonia Gorge in southern New South Wales, long serving as a traditional route for Wadi and Yuin peoples. Cosmogenic burial dating of cave gravels proved that the river maintained its entrenched gorge through 300 metres of uplifted limestone over 30 million years of intraplate uplift. Item 2. The Arcos sandstone strata of Uluru were tilted vertically during the Alice Springs orogeny 400 million years ago and exposed by continuous regional erosion. Geological analysis refutes commercial claims that the monolith is the oldest mountain on Earth, while the Anangu traditional owners and Parks Australia manage the site for cultural and ecological conservation following the permanent closure of the climb in 2019. Item 1. The characteristic blue haze of the Blue Mountains is generated by dense eucalyptus forests releasing volatile monoterpenes and isoprene. Atmospheric spectrometry confirmed that these biogenic organic aerosols selectively scatter short-wavelength blue sunlight across the valleys, maintaining an optical phenomenon that environmental protection agencies monitor against regional industrial emissions. What kept these 50 anomalies hidden from official view for over a century was not their remoteness, but the cartographic assumption that a continent without active plate boundaries is an inert, finished piece of stone. Early surveyors drew ridgelines, watersheds, and borders as permanent, static lines across the map sheet, mistaking the low relief of the landscape for tectonic death. Much remains actively unresolved. Deep seismic reflection profiling by Geoscience Australia is only now mapping the full vertical extent of ancient mantle scars beneath eastern Australia, while satellite radar interferometry continues to measure subtle intraplate buckling that existing geological models cannot fully explain. Along the Great Escarpment, rates of headward river capture and regressive cliff collapse are still being quantified, with several fragile alpine peatlands and relict ecosystems facing irreversible degradation before their hydrological systems are completely understood. The official map presents a continent settled in its final geometry, but the ground beneath it continues to move, flex, and erode at its own deliberate pace. Which landscape anomaly in your own state or territory has always struck you as out of place, and which of these 50 structural features surprised you most? Leave your thoughts in the comments below and subscribe for more deep investigations into the hidden geography of the continent.